health service providers. The NHI will reduce inequalities in healthcare by ensuring that everyone gets fair medical treatment. Now, the NHI will save many lives by providing a package of services that include, for example, even more especially, maternal and newborn care and services also for people living with HIV, those with TB, and those suffering from non-communicable diseases such as heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. Our most immediate priority is to strengthen the health system and improve the quality of care. A vital part of this is the modernization, the improvement, and the maintenance of existing health facilities and the construction of new hospitals and clinics. A number of hospitals are under construction or are undergoing revitalization. Now, these include the Limpopo Central Hospital, the Siloam District Hospital in Limpopo, the Tlhabeng Regional Hospital in the Free State, the Bambisana District Hospital, Zitulele District Hospital in the Eastern Cape, and the Buphelong Psychiatric Hospital in Northwest. Rather, other projects are at various stages of design and development. Now, this includes the replacement of 3 existing new central hospitals, 5 new district hospitals, 5 community health centers, and a new psychiatric hospital. To improve patient experience, we are putting more emphasis on reducing waiting times, cleanliness, and staff attitudes in the public health facilities. We are encouraged by the great progress the country has made towards ending HIV and AIDS as a public health threat. By the end of March 2024, 96% of people living with HIV knew their status. 79% of these were on antiretroviral treatment, and 94% of these were on treatment with virally suppressed conditions. Now, to ensure that we reach the target of 95, 95, 95, which has been set by the World Health Organization, we will this year launch a massive campaign to look for an additional 1.1 million people who are not yet on treatment. We are concerned about the potential impact of the decision by the United States government to suspend some of its funding for HIV and TB programs in African countries for 90 days. Now, this funding that we get accounts for about 17% of our country's HIV spend. We have been able, over the years, to provide funding from our own resources, our own fiscus, for our HIV and TB programs. We are looking at various interventions to address the immediate needs and ensure the continuity of the essential services.
Welcome back. In his State of the Nation address, President Cyril Ramaphosa reinforced government's commitment to strengthening the public health systems through the NHI.
Toivo of Namibia, President Yoma fought tirelessly for freedom, justice, and the inalienable right for African nations to determine their own destiny. Madam Speaker, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his first State of the Nation address following the formation of the Government of National Unity, I couldn't help but saw in my mind racing to the day in which this House debated his opening address to Parliament following the historic May 2024 national and provincial elections. On that day, some among us, particularly from the opposition parties of our Parliament, declared that it was just a matter of time before this government collapses. Some even went as far as predicting that within the 6 months there would be no government. Happily, we have lived to see this day and therefore can state without any equivocation that such a prediction was nothing but a wish being the father to the thought. Madam Speaker, this year we are celebrating the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the seminal document of our people, the Freedom Charter, by the Congress of the People. The evolution of our struggle over decades since the adoption of the Freedom Charter presented to the world and humanity in general the kind of South Africa we want, for which our forebears were prepared to die. We, the representatives of our people, as constituted in our sitting today by all spheres of our government, have an obligation to pursue all these objectives which remain central to the kind of society we seek to build. Last year, we celebrated the 30 years of our freedom. In terms of measuring the progress we have made towards the creation of a non-racial, non-sexist, equitable and prosperous society to which we remain committed, we made an observation that indeed we have a long way to go to eradicate the legacy of colonialism and apartheid. Given the important challenges we continue to face, the ANC steadfastly believes that these leadership echelons gathered here and representing all spheres of our government must continue to be driven by a sense of urgency in everything we do, responding to the plights of our people and black people in general who continue to enjoy the hardships of the apartheid colonialism. It is in this context that, Comrade President, the masses of our people celebrated when, among other things, you signed into law the Bella Act, the NHI Act, as well as the Expropriation Act. These masses respected the fact that the continuing process of social and national emancipation to which we were subjected remains a contested terrain, where those who benefited from the exclusion will be hostile to any step taken towards redressing the imbalances of the past. Perhaps, and with the highest level of humility, let me also join to reiterate the point you made during the State of the Nation address, Comrade President, that in our quest to change the living conditions of our people, we will not be bullied. Madam Speaker, the National Liberation Movement understood then and even now that the process of social transformation is a complex undertaking, which at times will be marked by major contradictions between those who represent change and those who seek to defend the status quo. The ANC manifesto, which constitutes a binding contract between the African National Congress and the people of South Africa, outlines 6 priorities. Madam Speaker, I'm delighted to see that the State of the Nation address delivered by President Ramaphosa has effectively taken on board these and therefore now placed them as priorities of the democratic state. This Parliament will ensure that both the President and his government are accountable to the implementation of these priorities. Of greatest significance in this regard is the fact that the ANC, as the principal lead of the National Democratic Revolution, has an absolute and a binding obligation to defend the correctness of the policies, the policy perspective against our detractors, both domestically as well as internationally. Madam Speaker, almost 8 years ago in 2017, commenting on President Donald Trump's elections, one Dr. Shongwe in KwaZulu-Natal pointed to what he defined as a culture of narcissism. The African National Congress fully supports your decision, Comrade President, to have a delegation that will visit not only Washington but other capitals of the world to seek to persuade them into correctness of the position and the perspective of the African National Congress. And perhaps to qualify this point, let me quote what the President of the ANC, Nkosi Albert Luthuli, said, that if the Charter is examined, it will be seen that freedom means the opening of the opportunities to all South Africans to live full and abundant lives in terms of the country, the community, and individuals. Thank you very much.
The next speaker on the speakers list is the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Shope.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces. Thank you very much. We promised the nation that we will deliver our speech today as an opposition party, and we're about to do just that. We greet the leadership. We greet the leadership of Umkhonto weSizwe and the leadership and the members of the Progressive Caucus present here in Parliament. In all honesty, there is no need to dignify. In all honesty, there is no need to dignify the false and empty promises of President of the so-called Government of National Unity, because throughout his presidency, he has made many commitments and promises which were never fulfilled and will never be fulfilled. Allow us to greet and pay homage to the President of Umkhonto weSizwe, our Commander General, President Jacob Zuma, Nxamalala. During his tenure as President,
Honorable Shope, can you please take your seat? Honorable Member.
Honorable Chair, can you please take in charge of the House?
Can you be on your feet?
The Speaker is been drowning here.
Honorable Member, can you be on your feet? And on what point of order are you raising on? On what rule are you raising on?
Chair, the Speaker has been drowned, please.
Please take your seat, Honorable Member. Your order is not sustained. However, Honorable Member, I understand that there is echo in this House. Please, if we could try our level best to remain silent and allow the speakers to deliver their messages. Thank you very much. Over to you, Honorable Shope.
Thank you very much. During his tenure as President and Head of State, President Zuma never told lies. He never claimed easy victories. President Zuma prioritized the work on the ground and delivered the services to our people. We take this opportunity as Umkhonto weSizwe.
Honorable Shope, can you please take your seat? Honorable members, can we please allow the Speaker on the podium to debate? Order, honorable members, can we please allow the Speaker? Over to you, Honorable Shope.
Thank you. We take this opportunity as Umkhonto weSizwe to state without any fear of doubt or contradictions by all measures and standards, President Jacob Zuma is the most successful president and head of state that South Africa has ever had. We are stating this fact not out of emotions or excitement, but through verified statistical data, which we will summarize in our input today. President Zuma's 9 years as head of state and president of our country was not just 9 wasted years, but was 9 years of progress defined by increasing life expectancy, access to education, and massive infrastructural programs. When President Zuma assumed office in 2009, South Africa's life expectancy was at 50 years, and throughout his leadership of South Africa as head of state, the life expectancy rose to more than 65 years, and that is a fact. Furthermore, there is no doubt that the rise in life expectancy under President Zuma happened due to clear government interventions which included heightened provision of antiretroviral drugs to those infected with HIV and AIDS. The number of HIV and AIDS-related deaths decreased drastically under President Jacob Zuma, and that is a fact. President Jacob Zuma invested in education and is the only president since 1994 to build new universities in provinces that never had universities before. The University of Mpumalanga and Solplaatje University in the Northern Cape happened due to the leadership of President Zuma, and that is the legacy of 9 years of progress we are talking about. In relation to infrastructure, President Zuma is number one when it comes to driving expenditure of education, health care, roads and transport and basic services of infrastructure than any other president in South Africa. It is a fact President Zuma built more hospitals, more roads, and more schools than any other head of state and president in South Africa. That is a fact. It was under President Zuma's presidency that the social protection net was expanded to reduce the devastating levels of poverty and suffering of our people. President Zuma increased the age categories of social grants recipients because he understood that people don't get richer when they get older. As the head of state and the president of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma openly advocated the expropriation of land without compensation. He was failed. President Zuma, was failed by a reactionary and collaborationist parliamentary caucus which frustrated a solid and sound agreement amongst progressive parties to amend Section 25 of the Constitution. In response to Fees Must Fall movement, President Jacob Zuma introduced fee-free education at higher education level. This was frustrated, however, and reversed by the administration that took over after his removal from office. We can throw statistical data on all areas of human development and progress, and we will all come to the same conclusion that the vision held by President Zuma far exceeded the narrow political obsession and persecution which the establishment subjected him to. Because he foresaw and politically knew and understood that South Africa's development and growth path cannot and should not depend on the imperialist and neo-colonial West, President Zuma built far-reaching and sustainable partnerships with countries that have no colonial and neo-colonial aspirations over South Africa and the African continent. It was President Zuma who got South Africa admitted. Yes, it was President Zuma who got South Africa admitted into BRICS. That is Brazil, Russia, China, and South Africa in 2010. And many other countries have since then applied for membership of BRICS. Madam Chair, BRICS amounts to 31% of the global gross domestic product, 41% of the global population, and a significant voice in regional and global political economic affairs. The recent bullying tactics of the United States of America are a clarion call that South Africa should deepen the economic relationships with BRICS plus countries started by President Zuma. We now have in progress BRICS family. We have now, under the BRICS family, we have the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, the United UAE, Islamic Republic of Iran, we have Argentina, we have Egypt, and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, who can be sustainable and dependable trading partners and not bullying off tankers of goods and services produced and made in South Africa. Those are dependable partners. While we expect President Desmond Trump, while we expect President Donald Trump to end the imperialist war of NATO in Russia and to dissociate from the neo-colonial and dishonest so-called green energy, from the so-called green energy transactions imposed on the developing world. We do not agree with him and his promotion of white supremacists who claim they are facing genocide in South Africa. While there is no genocide and there is no threat of genocide in South Africa, let's make that clear. There are, however, legitimate cries of historically and presently oppressed and excluded black majority who demand the return of the land and the wealth to the ownership and control of the people as a whole, and not the privileged few beneficiaries of apartheid and colonialism. That is our demand. Under the leadership of President Zuma, South Africa has since made significant strides in engaging with BRICS partners in an effort to challenge the dominance of the Western countries. Notably, the BRICS bloc has shown interest in creating alternative financial mechanisms, including a potential BRICS currency and multilateral payment systems. Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, we have an obligation as South Africa to defend our sovereignty and territorial integrity, and in doing so, we should appreciate that our sovereignty as a nation should necessarily include the protection and sovereignty and the territorial integrity of all African countries. As we stated in the matter of urgent debate yesterday, South Africa should never surrender the Democratic Republic of Congo to the rebels, because these rebels are funded by foreign role players, including the foreign governments and businesses which use rebels as conduits and militia to loot our natural endowments and wealth. If we run away and surrender DRC to the rebels, they will gain confidence and cause destabilization in the whole of East Africa, and then proceed to Southern Africa like they have already started in Mozambique. We cannot and should never surrender the Democratic Republic of Congo to these dogs. We cannot and should never surrender even 1 inch of Africa's land and wealth to these dogs. We have an elected government in the DRC, and those who seek political power should gain it through democratic means and with the support of the people, and not through the barrel of the gun. Honorable Chairperson, the year 2030 is 5 years from now. 5 years from now, and according to the National Development Plan, which claim is the GNU strategic objective, by the year 2030, you should have achieved the following. 1, NDP Vision 2030 of the so-called GNU says that by year 2030, South Africa should have 6% unemployment rate. And currently unemployment rate at an expanded definition to include discouraged work seekers. It is sitting at the moment at 40% of the population. These are people who have the ability to work but cannot find the jobs. 2, the National Democratic Vision of 2030 of the so-called GNU says that by year 2030, South Africa should have no one living under the poverty line. And currently, more than 40% of South Africans are living under the poverty line. Thirdly, this is part of the vision of the GNU, that by 2030, the so-called Government of National Unity says that by 2030, South Africa should have reduced the highest levels of inequality, yet our country remains the most unequal society in the world. South Africa remains the most unequal society in the world. We now know that the objectives and goals of the National Democratic Vision 2030 will not be achieved because this so-called Government of National Unity is directionless and does not have a common vision or does not have a vision at all.
Honorable Sope, can you please take your seat? Honorable Mhaule.
Mhlauli.
Mhlauli.
Thank you. This is Mhlauli.
Thanks.
I rise, Madam Chair, on Rule 68, which speaks to relevance and repetition. The speaker on the floor is not debating Sona, which is completely irrelevant to what the topic of discussion today is. Thank you.
Honorable members, once again, I want to make this appeal. Can you please avoid drowning the speakers or attempting to make a dialogue when the speaker is on the floor? Can we please be orderly? Honorable Mohaule, your point of order is not sustainable. Can we allow Honorable Shope to continue?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We now know that the objectives and goals of the NTP Vision 2030 will not be achieved because the so-called Government of National Unity is directionless and does not have a common vision or does not have a vision at all. Honorable Chairperson, the South African Reserve Bank, through the Prudential Authority, is in the process of closing down Ithala Bank, which is the only bank in South Africa started by and controlled by black people and has been at the center of serving our people. There are available solutions within the state, including through massive investment by the Public Investments Corporation to rescue and keep Ithala Bank fully operational and give it a banking license in terms of the Act. But the DA-ANC alliance government is allowing Ithala to be closed down in order to create space for the white-owned banks, in particular First National Bank. The Prudential Authority of the South African Reserve Bank continue to ignore the many bank violations of Capitec Bank, swept under the carpet the very fact that there is banking conglomeration in RMB, FNB, Discovery and Green Road banks which are owned by the same people, yet it rushes to close down Ithala Bank. We want to assure the people of KwaZulu-Natal that when we take over the province of KwaZulu-Natal in particular, we will revive and strengthen Ithala Bank and restore it to its former glory and full operation. Meaningful economic participation by our people is not part of the NDP 2030 vision of the so-called GNU. Any self-respecting human being knows that South Africa will not achieve even half of the objectives and goals set in the NDP of the GNU, because this GNU is full of self-contradictions and conflicts which will disrupt a clear development path to prosperity. The so-called GNU is nothing but a grand coalition of former liberators and historical but present oppressors. And the former liberators have joined the oppressors in the continued oppression of our people. While they travel in luxurious cars, the majority of the population's reality is one of catastrophic public transport that is akin to walking barefooted. This contradiction is starker in the light of the following. There is a widening fiscal gap in this country between the rich and the poor. It is now projected to exceed 5% of the GDP. B, there is a growing national debt expected to surpass 80% of the GDP by year 2026, a cause for concern. There is rising inflation and increased cost of living, forcing millions into deeper poverty as poor households are faced with disproportionate 11.3 increase in their food basket, pushing them deeper into poverty. South Africa remains the most unequal country in the world, with a Gini coefficient of 0.63. The inequality gap between the rich and the poor is growing wider every day. In 2024 alone, over 139,000 more people fell into the extreme poverty. Yet, despite previous commitments, the government has failed to introduce a basic income grant. The Social Relief of Distress, SRD grant, which provides critical relief to 8 million South Africans, remains uncertain and is likely to be ended in March this year. Informal settlements continue to grow, while state-funded housing projects still due to budget constraints that exist only on paper. Meanwhile, the rail system, a potential lifeline for working-class South Africans, remains broken, forcing reliance on expensive and unsafe alternatives. Government's failure to spend allocated funds is not just mismanagement. It is an active betrayal of our people. Over 90% of the municipalities are financially unsustainable and unable to meet their service delivery obligations. Water shortages and sewer spills have become a daily reality in many communities. Load shedding, now called load reduction, continues to cripple small businesses and the households of the poor, making economic recovery impossible. We as Umkhonto weSizwe are fully aware that instead of giving land to our people, the current government is cooperating with the white capitalist establishment to take away the land and natural resources of our people. Our Commander General, President Zuma, has had several engagements with Amakhosi from Richards Bay areas in Umhlathuze municipality in King Cetshwayo district of the KZN province. We are fully aware that the authorities, including the highest office in South Africa and the highest office in South African Police Service, have been threatening and intimidating Amakhosi from the area, intimidating them to accept a deal which will pillage and loot the natural resources and endowments of our people in the area. We take this opportunity to send a strong warning to the Richards Bay minerals owned by BHP Billiton and Rio Tinto that we as Umkhonto weSizwe, representing the majority of the people in Umhlathuze municipality, majority in King Cetshwayo district, and certainly a decisive majority of the people of KwaZulu-Natal province, we will not allow Rio Tinto and BHP Billiton to pilate and loot our natural resources. We will not allow that. In the next few weeks, we as members of Umkhonto weSizwe and the KZN members of the provincial legislature will be visiting Umhlathuze municipality in King Cetshwayo district of KwaZulu-Natal province to solidify our program and campaign against Rio Tinto and BHP Billiton. We will do that. We as Umkhonto weSizwe, we stand here on behalf of the people of South Africa, traditional and religious leaders, the unemployed millions of our people, the underpaid and exploited workers, the black professionals who suffer racist treatment in the workplace, the farm workers, and all the people who need a better future for our country, and state that Umkhonto weSizwe is the real alternative to current so-called government of national unity, which is nothing but an alliance between the DA and the African National Congress. The so-called government of national unity has exposed...
Honourable member, your time is up. Please take your seat.
No, how was... Okay.
Honourable members, please take your seat. I'm now calling the Minister of Agriculture, Honourable Steenhuisen.
Madam Speaker, House Chairperson, Chairperson of the NCOP, Mr. President, honourable members. South Africa is in a crisis. For 10 years, our population has grown faster than our economy, making us poorer. We have the highest unemployment rate on earth, and that has now been the case for decades. Violent crime still destroys the lives and livelihoods of our people at a terrible rate. 70 of our fellow countrymen and women are murdered every single day. Our education outcomes continue to steal our children's futures, and positive progress is slow. 8 months ago, the Democratic Alliance entered the Government of National Unity for 2 reasons. First, to prevent the MK from getting their hands back on the levers of power, where they would be able to loot another 4.9 trillion rand of our GDP and plunge our country into another 9 wasted years, where it wouldn't be the school children, it wouldn't be the poor that benefit, it would have been the same old elite that ate out of the trough of the public purse and have led our country to where it sits today. But we also joined the Government of National Unity. We joined the Government of National Unity so that we could play our part in helping to turn South Africa around, to turn the tide.
Honourable Steenhuisen, please take your seat. Honourable members, for the last time, once again, I'm pleading with you, don't drown the speaker on the floor. Over to you, Honourable Steenhuisen.
We joined the Government of National Unity to turn our country around so we can finally turn our back on the looting, the corruption and maladministration that typified the 9 wasted years under President Jacob Zuma. But we also joined to be part of the growth and jobs agenda and to make sure that we confront the crises that face us. The truth is, we've persisted for far too long with policies that fail South Africa. State monopolies being bailed out over and over again. Excessive regulation that makes it harder for businesses to grow. Empowerment policies that benefited the few and not the many. And a tariff regime that pushes up prices with no benefit, even to the companies that those tariffs are meant to protect. And underpinning that, a thoroughgoing lack of accountability, where those responsible can sit in the gallery of Parliament watching our proceedings instead of behind bars where they belong. Worse still, in the face of this crisis, we've yet to respond with the urgency and determination to make a clean break from the past and to set forth boldly on a new path of success. And now, having made ourselves weak over those 9 wasted years, we confront a new threat: US tariff barriers, potential threat of AGOA, and possibly even sanctions by a regime driven by an administration that will put America's interests ahead of ours. And make no mistake about that. And so what do? When a country faces a crisis, it needs to unite and navigate the threat. And that is what we must do now. And the GNU must practice what it preaches. And that is why, in a variety of portfolios, we've taken a decision to focus like a laser beam on growth and jobs. And that was what the President set out in the Sona. I was in Ceres yesterday to mark the first shipment of South African apples to Thailand in 16 years. Just one example of how this government is opening up new markets for our agricultural products. Solly Malatsi, ministers on a mission to get fast, reliable broadband into the hands of millions of people in rural areas. Dr. Schreiber opening South Africa to skills and to tourists. Minister McPherson fast-forwarding infrastructure projects. Honourable Garube, Minister Garube, focusing on long-term education excellence through a strategic reorientation. And Minister George ensuring regulations to enable sustainable growth. We need to approach our trading partners now and seek to lower...
Honourable please take your seat. Honourable member.
Will John Steenhuisen take a question?
Honourable Steenhuisen, can you take a question?
No, I wasted 9 years listening to this stuff in the House under his previous leader.
He doesn't want to take a question. Please sit down, member. You can proceed, Honourable Steenhuisen.
We must turbocharge Operation Vulindlela. We must take up the World Bank's offer of a government-wide regulatory review. We must bring down the costs of living for our consumers. We must allow equity alternatives to ownership requirements in every sector. And we must make the bold decisions that are required to get our country moving forward. But there's one more thing we must do. There's one more thing we must do. And that is remember that South Africa cannot succeed unless everybody in South Africa succeeds, and I mean everybody, no exceptions. And that means we must redress the wrongs of the past, but we must do so in a way that grows employment and grows our economy. It makes no sense, for instance, that 30 years of transformation has occurred alongside a 50% increase in unemployment. We cannot redress the past by compromising the present or sacrificing the future. We must ensure that we respect cultural and language rights, which exist precisely because South Africa is a diverse and divided country. And we must ensure that every single South African feels safe in their homes and at their place of work. And that includes our farmers and farm workers. The dismantling of the rural safety units was a catastrophic mistake. and it opened the door to a collapse of rural policing and the targeting of our farmers and farm workers of all races by violent criminals and syndicates. Just this weekend, I was in Tabanchu, in Vicksburg, and other parts of the Free State, with commercial farmers and small-scale black farmers, to listen to their heartbreaking stories about how they fear for their families' lives, and they are preyed upon almost monthly by syndicates of stock thieves who destroy their opportunity to grow their businesses. Cases get opened but are never investigated. They know who is responsible but cannot secure arrests or convictions. This situation cannot go unaddressed. And as a result, in my capacity as Minister of Agriculture, I'm announcing that we're going to work with the sector to design a comprehensive plan to combat farm murders, stock theft, and improve rural safety. I look forward to collaborating with the Minister of Police and the entire Justice and Security cluster to bring an end to the scourge once and for all. Madam Speaker, we live in times of both great hope but also great fear. It is time for us as leaders, the people of this House, to lead by example. We should seek to unite, not to divide. We should seek to build, Mr. President, not to break. We should choose to reflect the best of ourselves and banish the worst. Madam Speaker, we must recognize the moment that we find ourselves in for what it is, a moment of great danger for the people of South Africa. For if they fall prey to the historic revisionism that we've just heard from the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition, they could lull themselves into some complacency that somehow things were better when those policies and persons were in charge. Nobody took more advantage of the people of South Africa than the leader of Umkhonto we Sizwe, even using their money to build his own house while people lived in poverty. And we must reject the revisionism, because had we had that 4.9 trillion rand that was stolen under Mr. Zuma, we would have schools that were working, clinics that were functioning, police and nurses on the streets, and South Africa would be a better place. But never you mind, Mr. President. It's up to us now to pick up the baton and to take this country forward. But it means that we need to do whatever we can to turn the economy around. The time for a break with failed policies is now. The time for a new approach
Honourable Minister,
is now.
your time is up.
Now is the
You
time.
can take your seat.
Thank you.
Thank you, honourable members. Please take your seats. I'm now calling the next speaker, Honourable Malema.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the NCOP. We want to make it very clear that we should not be confused with a generation of cowards who can be bullied by imperial forces and power-hungry individuals intoxicated by the wealth of apartheid. The United States of America has bullied nations before and imposed senseless and arbitrary sanctions and threatened wars. But we are a different generation. We are a generation of economic freedom fighters and will not be bullied, Mr. President. We agree with you, President, that we should not be bullied. We stand on the shoulders of the giants who confronted the establishment with their very lives, and we are willing to follow in their footsteps. We are not cowards, and they must not try us. Chair, President Cyril Ramaphosa stood before a joint sitting of the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces on Thursday last week addressing South Africans and the world to deliver his 8th State of the Nation address. Yet he spoke as if it were his first ever Sona. There was no sense of accountability, no meaningful reporting, and no acknowledgement of the economic crisis facing our people. The president did not tell us what happened to the National Development Plan. He did not say whether it is still the guiding policy of South Africa, nor did he acknowledge that the country has been governed without any clear, practical, and guiding policy. Today, we have the medium-term development plan, but its direction and impact remain unclear, just another failed NDP. In reality, the neoliberal right-wing coalition has no credible economic plan. There is no clear strategy to create jobs while more than 12 million people remain unemployed. The economy is stagnant, and these are undeniable facts. We are facing a crisis as a nation. The crisis of high food prices, the crisis of unaffordable transport costs, the crisis of soaring petrol prices, the crisis of gender-based violence and femicide, and the collapse of the National Gender-Based Violence Command Center without an explanation. The crisis of water shortage in Mzinyati, Skukuni, and many other parts of Gauteng is a serious crisis. The crisis of inadequate housing in Alexander, Umlazi, and Khayelitsha. The crisis of collapsed municipalities that lack the capacity to deliver basic services. These are the crises the president inherited when he was elected President of the Republic of South Africa on 15 February 2018. In 2018, you said you will focus on rebuilding, yet things only got worse for our people. In 2019, you said to Mamina, the nation sent you, but to this day, we don't know what you went and did after you were too much. It was in 2019 when you stood before South Africa after asking us to send you, and you promised the nation speed trains and a smart city. You asked us to imagine a country where bullet trains pass through Johannesburg as they travel from here to Musina, and they stop in Buffalo City on their way from eThekwini back here in Cape Town. You said to us, the time has arrived to build a new smart city founded on the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution. We sent you to fulfill these dreams of yours, and 6 years later, you have not returned with a speed train or a smart city, and your term of office is slowly nearing an end. You said 2020 will be the year of tackling state capture and ensuring accountability. Yet not a single person has been arrested despite the 1 billion spent on the Zondo Commission report. In 2021, you declared it the year of recovery. Yet South Africa's economy deteriorated further, with economic growth falling below 1%, except for the brief rebound following the reopening of the COVID-19, which collapsed almost immediately. In 2022, you claimed you will address governance failures, yet corruption became one of the biggest issues under your leadership. And that corruption has found its way now into the judiciary. We never had crisis of corruption in the judiciary. It only started with you when you sealed the CR17 documents in court. We listened to you in 2023 when you called on the nation to work together, yet it was your own political party, the Former Liberation Movement, that continued to deploy incompetent comrades to municipalities, boards of state-owned enterprises, provincial departments, and national government. And when you tried to tell us the story of Tintswalo in 2024, we told you right there and then that you were talking about a Tintswalo who does not exist. The real Tintswalo was born in a shack, raped at the age of 6, dropped out of school before reaching grade 7, and was murdered while looking for a job. That's the Tintswalo we know. And now, this year, You tell us that you will not be bullied. We agree with you that we must not be bullied, but you fail to tell us what you are going to do about it. It is not enough to simply say you will not be bullied. You must tell us what action you will take. When you respond on Thursday, we expect you to provide real, detailed response to Donald Trump. But we know that the 940 billion infrastructure plan is yet another empty promise. We know that 375 billion allocated to SOEs, which still do not have a clear reindustrialization strategy, is a waste of money. We know that the corporate approach and strategy for Transnet, the unbundling of ESCOM, and the so-called modernization of ports and airports are all just privatization in disguise. President, we know that blended finance will become another looting scheme when students here at CPUT are sleeping outside at this very moment due to lack of housing. But as economic freedom fighters, we have adopted the theme of the year of picket lines. We are going back to the streets, we are reclaiming our identity, and we want to reunite with our people. We'll go to the streets to demand water for our people, to demand the speedy allocation of housing, to demand the eradication of pit toilets, and to fight for service delivery. We are taking our picket lines to the National Treasury and the Reserve Bank to demand nationalization and the transformation of the economy. We will picket outside correctional facilities to demand an end to overcrowding and syndicates within prison that control crime in the outside world. And we will demand the expulsion of private companies such as G4S, which has links to Israel and runs a prison in Mangaung. We continue to stand with the people of Palestine who remain under siege. We agree as the National Assembly that the Israeli embassy must be closed. Yet their flag continues to fly in our country, while Palestinians are threatened with mass deportation to foreign lands. We support the government's case in the International Court of Justice, and we must remain resolute in the face of sanctions and sponsored attacks. And importantly, we must oppose the colonization of Gaza by the USA. Justice and freedom for Palestine. One day, the people of Palestine will know the true meaning of freedom. Mr. President, we are not being attacked by Trump administration because you did anything wrong. They are attacking us because of our stand on Israel. They are attacking us because of the action the government has taken to ICJ. And we are saying to you, do not be misled by people who are saying you are under siege because of expropriation, which is meaningless act. That act does not say anything, and they all understand that language. They are using it to fight our case against Israel. And when you say they cannot bully us, you must start by removing the Israeli embassy to show them that we will not be bullied. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order. Honorable the Minister of Small and Medium Enterprises. Order, honorable members. Honorable members of the EFF, can you please take your seats? Order, honorable members. Order. We do appreciate that members, for whatever reason, they would like to applaud their speakers, their leaders. However, we need to be considerate when a speaker has been called on the podium, so that in future we do not find ourselves having to raise points of order when others do the same. I really appeal that we desist from doing so henceforth. Minister.
Honorable Speaker, last week His Excellency President Ramaphosa stressed that our most urgent task is to grow the economy above 3% so that we can build a dynamic and thriving economy that creates opportunities for the historically marginalized and generates new jobs. The National Democratic Society that we envision must be founded on a dynamic and inclusive economy that reflects the country's natural endowments and the innovation of its people. It must harness cutting-edge technology, labor-absorbing industrial development, a thriving small businesses and cooperative sector, and efficient production and management systems to promote national prosperity. This requires unlocking the full potential of all citizens, dismantling racial and gender-based barriers to ownership, and ensuring equitable access to economic opportunities. Mr. President, I would like to say up front that the issues of economic transformation in a comprehensive sense should be at the heart of the national dialogue, which government will convene soon. There is no way we can achieve the national consensus with an economy that excludes the majority. The social contract that we want to craft should contribute towards reconstructing our economy to achieve more growth, jobs, and inclusion. This is more urgent for communities in the township and rural areas, especially for youth and women. Our G20 theme of fostering solidarity, equality, and sustainable development is in line with our goals of achieving inclusive and sustainable development. It also reflects our deepest values to promote international cooperation, interdependence, and collaboration, something we need desperately in the times we live in. We have cultivated these values domestically in how we govern, how we forge consensus with varied stakeholders, and how we work together to meet difficult socio-economic challenges. With our leadership at the G20, the future looks most promising, honorable members. I would like to remind all of us of the Freedom Charter, which envisioned a country of brothers and sisters, black and white, living in a world where they all thrive economically and live in peace. Honorable Speaker, the President outlined 5 main ways to get to our 3% growth challenges that we have set for the nation through the SONA. There are several ways to get significantly more people economically active. Through the industrial policy that is being finalized by Minister Dau, we will enhance our efforts to support employment-intensive industrialization, public employment initiatives, especially those with pathways to upskilling and sustainable livelihoods. We are placing MSMEs at the center. We draw valuable lessons from the experience of other developing countries across the world. We welcome the announcement that over the next 3 years, this administration will spend 940 billion rands on infrastructure projects. We eagerly await the finalization of the regulations under the Public Procurement Act that will drive transformation, foster the emergence of new players in our economy, and enable effective participation of small enterprises. To ensure increased access to funding, the President announced the Innovation Fund and the Transformation Fund, which is worth 20 billion rands a year over the next 5 years. These funds will act as a catalyst to attract other funds and disperse more funding support to MSMEs. In the 6th administration, we dispersed over 4.1 billion on business development support, over 9.4 billion rands on financial support. The National Empowerment Fund has dispersed over 10 billion rands. To support innovation, we have dispersed over 1 billion rands through the Department of Science and Innovation. We are convinced that working with DTIC through the Transformation Fund, we will double these efforts in the coming financial year. Our partnership with the JSE is reaping results with 15 high-potential CEDA-supported MSMEs that have increased their revenue by 22% and an additional 122 million rands that they pocketed. We continue to provide a range of instruments on wholesale finance, direct loans, blended finance, working capital and grants to various categories of the MSMEs and cooperatives. Some of those that we offer, we do so in partnership with financial institutions like the banks, where our credit guarantee and supplier guarantee products are working very well, leveraging R6.25 in financing for every rand that we guarantee. Our efforts on digitalizing systems at CIFA will accelerate turnaround times and improve accountability to applicants. Our Township and Rural Enterprise Program applications will now be processed within 7 days and the purchase order financing in 4 days. Through the small enterprise ecosystem, we have agreed on a stretch target of creating 1 million MSMEs by 2030, new MSMEs, and this will give us a total of 3.7 million jobs that our country so needs. We're currently undertaking industry engagements across various sectors to better understand trade and market demand pathways. Accordingly, we have engaged the automotive, wine and fishing industries, while in the coming weeks we'll be extending these engagements to the agricultural sector, the build industry, energy, petroleum and oil, sport and arts industries, amongst others. We have accordingly looked at the skills gaps within the MSME ecosystem, and to this end, we will be engaging the deans of commerce across the country to ensure that their curriculum respond effectively. This will give a clearer indication of the sectors and industries where there is most potential for MSME growth. Honorable members, our people in the rural and townships have been complaining about being excluded in their economy. We are finalizing the township economy and rural development plan, which will be presented to Cabinet, and in it will be ensuring that we build infrastructure for businesses in the townships. For us, land redistribution is the fundamental pillar of this transformation that we're talking about. Sustainable land reform must be supported by policies that equip small-scale and emerging farmers with the resources and skills needed for success. Economic transformation also requires a competitive and efficient market, free from the monopolistic constraints of colonial capitalism. For these goals to be achieved, the state must play a strategic role, including through directing resources towards boosting the township and rural economies. It is in line with this argument that we support the signed Land Expropriation Act and the Transformation Fund that the President has announced. Honorable Chair, we will ensure that we defend the gains of our freedom and democracy that works for the majority of South Africans, and therefore deliver on the aspirations of the Freedom Charter as detailed in our strategy and tactics. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Honorable Shabisa.
His Excellency, the President, honorable members and honorable Speaker, the IFP entered the 2024 elections on a mission to rebuild South Africa. We knew that 2024 will be the most crucial elections since the dawn of democracy. We entered the 2024 elections determined to put South Africa first and to bring integrity back to government, and at the heart of this vision is the government that works for its people. The GNU must therefore be applauded, for it is committed to building a capable, ethical, and developmental state comprising of ethical, skilled, and properly qualified public servants. Honorable President, I agree with you. Municipalities must work. Basic services must be delivered and delivered efficiently. At the heart of the crisis is the resources constraint of many municipalities. The current funding model for local government is unsustainable and perpetuates inequality between the rich and the poor. The new funding model is a must, one that considers each municipality's unique needs and challenges and provide a more equitable distribution of resources. Honorable President, you called for an updated white paper on local government. COGTA is already leading the reform of the 1998 white paper. Indeed, the White Paper Political Oversight Committee is already meeting next week. This presents an opportunity to rethink the funding model for municipalities. In March 2026, we will table in Cabinet an updated white paper on local government that will be responsive to the real challenges and propose solutions to make the local government work. Honorable President, the GNU will ensure that the commitments you made to the nation do not become empty promises, but a lived reality. We are encouraged that during Sona, you acknowledge the constructive and important role that traditional leaders can play in improving services to our people. For decades, the IFP has been proclaiming the critical role of traditional leaders in promoting development and stability in our communities. Hey, there's something which is disturbing here.
I'm sorry, can the service officers just check what's disturbing the minister?
Yeah, and I've removed it, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you for assisting.
We know the importance of partnering with traditional leaders to deliver services and promote development. Therefore, Honorable President, the traditional leaders must be properly supported and capacitated. The focus on new infrastructure development is also welcome, but it must be accompanied by maintaining and upgrading the existing infrastructure. To rebuild South Africa, we need to rebuild our education system, rebuild our healthcare system, and rebuild our economy. The IFP fully supports the principle of universal access to healthcare. Our concern, Honorable President, is the feasibility and affordability of the NHI in its current form. The government, therefore, must prioritize strengthening the existing public healthcare system, which is plagued by inefficiencies and shortages of equipment and medical personnel. The IFP proposes a more incremental approach to implementing the NHI, prioritizing strengthening the existing healthcare system and piloting new models of care. We also emphasize the need for greater transparency and accountability in managing NHI funds to arrest corruption and ensure that resources are properly used. We welcome the government's commitment to creating jobs and stimulating economic growth. We look forward to the implementation of the medium-term development plan, particularly in relation to the 3 strategic priorities of driving inclusive growth and job creation, reducing poverty, and tackling the high cost of living. Honorable Speaker, the unfolding drama and the international diplomatic fallout around the Expropriation Act is deeply concerning. We condemn those who spread misinformation and work against our collective national interest to rebuild South Africa. Together with the nation, Honorable Speaker, I honor our fallen soldiers who bravely fought for peace in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Their selfless sacrifice will never be forgotten. The IFP supports initiatives to restore peace across the continent, knowing that peace and stability are essential for economic development, social justice, and human dignity. Abrupt withdrawal will not be in the interest of the continent. South Africa's presidency of the G20 is a significant milestone for Africa. As a nation, we must showcase our talents, abilities, and potential to unlock the economic opportunities that will enable us to address pressing domestic challenges. Let me reiterate the IFP's resolute support of the GNU and the GPUs and their vision of healing wounds of the past while working for a brighter future for all of us. Honorable President, on behalf of the IFP, I want to applaud and urge your continued support, together with the Minister of Finance, to the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Honorable A.T. Ntuli, in the fight against the liquidation of Ithala Bank. Ithala Bank remains the legacy of the late Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi and the economic backbone and pride of the African people, individuals and business people. On 24 February will be a day of great march in KwaZulu-Natal, as we will take the fight to the street to fight against the liquidation of Ithala Bank. Honorable President, the IFP will be counted amongst the nation builders, not the breakers, the doers, not just the dreamers, the workers, not just the armchair critics. We stand ready to rebuild South Africa. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I would now like to call upon the Honorable Premier of the Northwest.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Chairperson of the NCOP, His Excellency President Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, members of the National Assembly, and permanent members to the NCOP, Bagaetsho dumelang. Honorable Speaker, allow me to take this opportunity to pass my sincere condolences to the family of Lance Bombardier Itumeleng McDonald Moreo of Debate village in Mahikeng, who is amongst the 14 members of the South African National Defence Force who were killed in the Eastern DRC. We join the cries of many of our people in the country and the rest of the continent to demand that the African Union not relent in the 2063 commitment to silence the guns on our beloved continent. Honorable members, as we mark the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the Freedom Charter, we need to remind ourselves of the objectives we set ourselves in the National Development Plan. We said we want to build a more prosperous country that is progressively eradicating poverty and inequality over time. We also said we want to eliminate the effects of apartheid and colonial discrimination that has scarred our society in order to lay the basis for greater social cohesion, unity, and opportunity. Honorable President, the Northwest is arguably the richest province in South Africa, yet has the highest unemployment rate in the country. Experts and academics, they call it a paradox of the plenty. Therefore, something drastic needs to be done to turn the tide against this socio-economic conundrum. Honorable President, we welcome the process to review of the white paper on local government. The Northwest Executive Council is the first to be consulted and will be submitting our proposals in due course. It is our wish that this process, President, not to be rushed, but to allow for a broad and extensive relook into our governance model and design. This will enable us to learn from the mistakes of local government since its inception. The Northwest Province supports the position adopted by SALGA that the funding model of local government be prioritized and run parallel with the white paper review process. We are also of the view, President, that a broader conversation is needed to include overall public sector funding review, which includes equitable funding to provinces. A holistic funding review process should, in our view, include an in-depth scrutiny of the division of revenue model to determine whether its current form is it assisting poor provinces to address the socio-economic needs of the people. The Northwest is of the firm view that the current equitable share allocation model should be centered on addressing developmental challenges confronting provinces based on their needs and developmental agenda and not the population. This should be done, President, however, without compromising the unitary nature of our fiscal framework. Honorable Speaker, we are, however, hard at work to improve the functionality and the service delivery performance of our local municipalities through the local government turnaround strategy. We are collaborating, Madam Speaker, with the National Treasury through mandatory interventions to assist municipalities with financial recovery plans, governance, and skills audit. There is progress, Madam Speaker, but still a lot has to be done. During the State of Local Government in the North Province, we agreed that as we do our analysis, we still have to improve the manner in which we are doing our intervention. Honorable Speaker, we have increased the tempo in the province of what is called Accelerated Service Delivery Program. We call it Tuntsale Road, now reloaded. We are prioritizing our rural communities. This has given us a chance, Madam Speaker, to strengthen and solidify our relations with our traditional leaders by prioritizing water, sanitation, and road infrastructure projects in those rural communities. Close to 150 million rand has been set aside to implement water and sanitation projects in villages like Budibe, Ramosadi, Signal Hill, Dinokana, and Lobate, among others. We put also aside 485 million rand committed to do a construction of a pipeline from Bloemhof Dam to Mamusa local municipality. This project is due to be completed in June this year and will alleviate water provisioning challenges in the Swaziland and the surrounding areas. In November last year, we handed over 96 million rand bulk water and reticulation plant at Rika Kharetile, near Stella in the Naledi local municipalities. Several projects of similar kind are being implemented in various parts of the province. Honorable Speaker, the Northwest is on the move. We have laid the foundation for most of the ambitious plans for the future of the province. We have recently completed the provincial growth and developmental strategy, and it will be implemented in full swing in the 25-26 financial year. The strategy is beginning to yield results in that in December last year, we opened a newly refurbished 200 million gold processing plant in Orkney in the city of Matosani local municipality. This forms part of a 2 billion investment by the China Africa Precious Metals, which created about 4,000 jobs in that municipality. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, we recently met the newly appointed Group Chief Executive Officer of Harmony Gold, Mr. Bayer Snell, and his group executive on the sideline of Africa Mining Industry. The mining company has invested over 7 billion rand at its operation in the city of Matlosane local municipality, preserving over 6,000 jobs and extending the lifespan of a mine by more than 15 years. Several more investment projects are in the pipeline, following our investment conferences we held last year, including our visit to China in the province of Henan and South Korea. Madam Speaker, agriculture remains an important sector in helping the province to drive its developmental agenda. We have set aside 36 million rand to support the red meat production program targeted at over 7,000 beneficiaries in the province. We will be working with Agri Northwest to support us in terms of mentorship programs to assist in particular emerging African farmers. Honorable President, in the past 2 weeks, I handed over 2 newly built houses to a 70-year-old Sarah Khahudi as one of the beneficiaries in Mamusa local municipality. This forms part of our 3,000 housing units planned for the financial year, with a total of 2,000 units delivered to beneficiaries in the third quarter. Madam Speaker, we also constructed 4 strategic roads projects.
Honorable Premier, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay, thank you very much. We are done.
I noted that there are a lot of members who have made a pass into the local government sphere, and as he was speaking about the local government strategy on both sides of the house, I saw people nodding or listening carefully. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Nyalo ngitawucela lilunga lelihloniphekile make Mathope atokhuluma nathi kulendlu lunga lelihloniphekile. Ningamphazamisi kakhulu nina bekunene uyaqala nje ukukhuluma kulendlu. Ngeje naye ke anganisukeli ukude ningamcali. Niphathane kahle nje nonke.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, Honorable President, honorable members and fellow South Africans. I would like to convey my condolences to the families of the 14 fallen heroes in the DRC. Sithiphephi, alihlanga lingahlanga. I want to thank the President for the well-constructed Sona speech. Mr. President, millions of South Africans eagerly watch. Now there's a great expectation on the delivery of your address. One of the promises is the 200 billion awarded to the Transformation Fund to support small and predominantly black businesses. It is my heartfelt wish that the black-owned businesses include colored and Indian South Africans as well, because history have learned that these groups were marginalized and had very little or no sharing in benefiting from funds such as these. Mr. President, thank you for sharing that 60% of South Africans are getting social or government support. However, it is concerning that because this is an indication that unemployment is high and proper job creation opportunities for all South Africans are in high demand irrespective of their race. Honorable President, it really is encouraging to hear that government prioritized 940 billion for infrastructure development, of which 375 billion will be awarded to state-owned enterprises for upgrading of their infrastructure. Can we please guard against corruption to prevent another state capture saga? Head of State, I am very glad to hear that PRASA will extend its network. But can you please address those who manage our public transport not to neglect our assets and left it in ruins? It is an eyesore to drive every day past the Cape Town station and to see so many train compartments in ruin. Mr. President, we will keep you to account on the promises you bring. We will keep you to account on the promise you bring rail, roads, and ports to international standards. Mr. President, you mentioned that you want South Africa to be a global leader in commercial cultivation of hemp and cannabis. Can I ask that of the land you intend to expropriate, that you consider using this land to accommodate these commodities and upskill unemployed youth and women to proudly manage these projects? Tlhokomela setjhaba sa heso, Mr. President. And Mr. President, I clearly heard you say that we will not be bullied. And we all know that you were...
Honourable Member, your time is up. Ungqongqoshe we-Correctional Services siyacela ze ngaphambili umnumzana uGroenewald.
Geachte Speaker, die slagspreuk van die Vryheidsfront Plus verlede jaar was kom ons herstel en bou. Let us restore and rebuild South Africa. The preamble of the Constitution determines that we respect those who worked to build and develop our country. And we believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. The ANC's Freedom Charter goes even further, saying, belongs to all who live in it, black and white. Now, Honourable Speaker, I want to put it very clearly that the Afrikaner is part of that diversity. And we want to build South Africa. En laat ons met mekaar eerlik wees. President Trump het die kollig geplaas op die Afrikaner in Suid-Afrika. Ek sê vir hom dankie, want ons is deel van Suid-Afrika. En ja, as daar mense is wat die land wil verlaat, dis hulle vrye keuse. Die Vryheidsfront Plus sal nie voorskriftelik wees nie. Maar agbare president, ek is hier om te bly. We are here to restore and rebuild. And if we want to solve the problems of South Africa, we must also look into the inconvenient truth of what is happening in South Africa. And part of that is land reform. In my limited time, I will focus on that. And it brings me to the Expropriation Act. And I want to put it very clearly that it is not true that expropriation without compensation will solve the land issue. What are the facts? If you go and look at the annual reports of the department, and if you look at the restitution, there were about 80,000 claims in terms of the restitution to address the unjust of the 1913 Land Acts. Of those claimants, 94%, and it's in the annual report, didn't want the land, they wanted the compensation. If we go to land redistribution, it is in the annual reports that 80% of the projects were failures. So to say that expropriation without compensation will solve the land issue and land reform is just not true. But what is happening in South Africa? And if I give you these examples of what is happening, we must remember one thing, that with social media, everything you put, whether it's on X or Facebook or whatever platform, it is for the world to see. And I want to refer specifically to the illegal can I say, the invasion and occupation of land. The Livernoot was one example where people just illegally invade the land. I want to give you another example. There is a farmer farming near Wepener. And there came a farmer with his cattle. He cut the fences and he is occupying that land. He went to the police.
Order, Honorable Groenewald, can you take your seat? Honorable members, we can converse without drowning the speaker. We can hurtle again without drowning the speaker or using our hands to make our statements. I would really appeal that we allow the speaker to present his statement. Honorable Groenewald, you can proceed.
He went to the police asking protection, but they refused. As we speak now, there is illegal land occupation at Stilfontein. There's a court order instructing the police to prevent it, but they do nothing. And that's the problem. If the police does not act, they're part of the executive. And then it can be said, but you are complicit to this illegal land evasion and occupation. Therefore, Honorable President, if we talk and we say we want to solve the problems, these issues must be addressed. The Afrikaner always contributed, whether you like it or not. They were part of those we say we respect, who worked to build and develop our country. We can only succeed to ensure that we are successful if we address our problems and we look each other in the eye and put the inconvenient truth on the table. We must ensure that we make South Africa so prosperous that people don't want to leave South Africa to go to other countries. But then, ons moet dan vir mekaar sê, erken die regte van die Afrikaner. Ons wil hard werk om 'n toekoms te skep vir onsself, vir ons kinders
Order,
en die
Honorable
toekoms
Member, your time is up.
vir almal in Suid-Afrika. I thank you.
Honorable Chauke.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker and members of this august House and fellow South Africans. Today we are gathered here as we debate on the state of the nation that was presented by our President, Comrade Honorable Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, President of the Republic of South Africa. We reflect on the history and the participation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities in the dispensation of our democracy. We look at how we seek to achieve economic inclusion and transformation. We seek to achieve an equitable and more just society for all. As we observe 70 years of the Freedom Charter, it says, the people shall share in the wealth of their country. The wealth cannot be equally distributed and shared without the empowerment of the most marginalized. There are policies, legislations that seek to empower young people, persons with disabilities, and women. But yet, systematic barriers still persist. Now, President, in your presidential speech, you indicated that you would then be strategically deploying various representatives and officials across the globe, representing South Africa for best practices, and also to find investment that will then be injected into South Africa. We're saying as part of those deployments, City to Martina, do not forget persons with disabilities. Do not forget women in these deployments. Do not forget young people who are the future of this country. Now we look and observe the legislations and policies that we have adopted in this very house that seek to empower the most vulnerable and the most marginalized. We've got the triple BEE, and yet there are still systematic disparities that persist. We want to ensure that those who are previously disadvantaged and were marginalized from participating in the economy of this country are included, integrated, and are able to effectively contribute towards the development and the growth of the economy. We've got the Public Procurement Act that seeks to ensure that persons with disabilities, women, youth have a fair opportunity to become part of the procurement system, ecosystem, but yet systematic barriers persist. President and fellow members, it is important for us to ensure that these legislations just do not exist in paper and in writing, but they must realize their full potential. We must ensure that when we speak about the Equity Act that seeks to ensure that women, youth, persons with disabilities previously disadvantaged and excluded must have employment. There must be adequate treatment. This must be realized, but through adequate funding. Policies can no longer be developed without adequate funding that is set aside to ensure the successful implementation of these policies. If we do not do this, we fear and we will face failure going forward. And we will continue with the same cycle. Now, President, we know that South Africa is recognized and known for developing the most progressive and inclusive policies and legislative frameworks. And our biggest challenge, and we all are aware of it, South Africans and members of this august house, is the implementation of the lack of funding around it. It is our time now, as South Africa, we have claimed political power. We are liberated. Now we seek economic liberation and empowerment for all South Africans. It can no longer be that you've got people with disabilities who are reliant on the social grant. It cannot be that we've got young people, young graduates, who are unable to find employment. The public sector, along with the private sector, needs to play an integral and impartial role in ensuring that young people, persons with disabilities, women are able to participate and have equal access. It cannot be that we are not fast-tracking the implementation of the BIG, Basic Income Grant, that seeks to leverage those who are previously disadvantaged households. It cannot be that we are delaying with the implementation of the Bill on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that seeks to enforce the laws that protect and promote the lives of persons with disabilities. We've got the Gender-Based Violence Commission that seeks empowerment funding and support. It must be very clear that gender-based violence will not only be solved through commissions, through council, but would require each and every single citizen to fully participate in this effort. But government, private sector, we all have a role. Now, fellow members of this House, I repeat again, the important role that is played by the private sector. We can no longer let the private sector get away with murder. We can no longer let the private sector not participate in the contribution of this economy and ensuring opportunities for the most vulnerable. We must ensure that even us at a government level, we are meeting the requirements. There is consequence management and accountability. Transparency for us to regain the trust of our people, to restore the dignity of our South African people. We must ensure that we are relevant and we are leading on the global stage. We must ensure that we stand in solidarity in ensuring that we are able to trade with our African brothers and sisters. We cannot do it alone, but in solidarity, it is possible. Economic empowerment is not just a luxury. It's a basic necessity and a human right. Every single South African deserves and shall be economically liberated and empowered. And this can only be done through reinforcing our policies, our legislation, and having an adequate oversight over those.
Honourable Member, your time is up.
Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Trollip.
Honourable Speaker, Honourable President, it's time for South Africans to be South African and to honour and respect the preamble of the Constitution and the Constitution itself. This is no time for ethnic and cultural individuality, no time for racial polarisation or talk of secession. We cannot afford a race war, and we cannot allow those who foment this here and abroad to incite us. You said we won't be bullied. Thereafter, President Trump issued an ill-informed executive order, fueled by divisive narratives designed to fracture us. This should have reminded us all that we do not live in splendid global isolation. The backpedaling in the face of Trump's executive order and the looming threat of AGOA's revocation has been remarkable. It reminds me of the popular acronym FAFO. Be careful of what you wish for. The truth is, for years we've been bullied. Our BRICS partners dictate who may and may not visit our country, such as the Dalai Lama, and who we can and cannot engage with, such as the Taiwanese government. You have chosen friends that are pariah nations, that are neither democratic nor uphold human rights, nations at war with their own people through repressive regimes. Conversely, we treat democratic nations, our major trading partners, with disdain and insult. Let it be known that the racist rhetoric so freely bandied about in this Parliament and on party rally stages by the likes of the ANC, the EFF and MKP has grave consequences for us as a nation. Your ANC sins are catching up with you. You have prostituted yourselves to the highest bidders who grease your party wheels with no regard for the consequences. The New World Order sees which side you have picked, and now the chickens are coming home to roost. Javier Milei was unambiguous about this at Davos. Mr. President, your lip service to fighting corruption while promoting and protecting cadres who have failed at local government level, who've been implicated and convicted of egregious corruption and tender fraud, undermines our international reputation. This severely limits our ability to attract foreign direct investment to grow our anemic economy. We have a new generation, a new government, in words, not in deed. There's an interesting article about the changing of the guard in the United States entitled Overrides. It focuses on the dismantling of an entrenched and manifestly corrupt order. It is clear that there's been no override or dismantling of our entrenched corrupt order, as your Sona speech was as delusional, out of touch and fanciful as ever. Mr. President, you displayed dystopian disconnection, and I'm not surprised because your ministers do it every day. Minister Mantashe said, Sizabakupa, when we asked him, when are you going to deal with the Lily Mine victims? It's now been 9 years. We hear that Vantage is going to open the mine, not a word about the Lily Mine victims. Your police minister informs you that every police station has a victim-friendly service center. They don't. Just ask every single GBV victim who has to go to a police center to report a rape what it feels like. Your Minister of Home Affairs claims to be eradicating backlogs, yet his department cannot resolve a case I've referred to him of 2 South Africans awaiting passports abroad for more than a year. It's easier for illegal immigrants to infiltrate Home Affairs and bribe their way to obtaining documents that give them access to South African social security and other citizenship privileges that our citizens don't have. No, sir, the situation is actually dystopian. Apart from watching some GNU parties clapping like seals during your address and listening to their valiant attempts at endorsing your commentary, the rest of the country is not convinced.
Order, honorable members. Let's allow Honorable Modise to make his presentation.
Madam Speaker of the National Assembly, His Excellency, President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, His Excellency, Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Paul Mashatile, honorable members, people of South Africa, Sanbonani. Chairperson of the session, I have said this before, and I hope I'm going to say it for the last time here today, that if you take a clown and you put it in the kingdom, the clown does not become the king, but the kingdom becomes a clown, or a rather circus. What we have been subjected to for the past 24 minutes by the Honorable Judge Hlophe is below par. They should have given it to Member Mkitama. He will have done something with that debate. Now I understand why Judge Hlophe will have said, because clearly there's nothing there. Chairperson, as a way of introduction, let me first pass my greetings and my respect to the following women who had a profound impact on my political life. Unfortunately, all of them have since passed away. I'm referring to Teresa Ramashamula, Bavelile Hlongwa, Thembi Mnguni, Khumo Ndlovu, Sandra Baloyi, Lindila Sindwa, Elizabeth Letanta, Alina Rantsolase, Tlo Mujela, Phumla Stokwe, Nonozi Mdlalose, and Thuli Nkabinde Khawe. The African National Congress welcomes and supports the State of the Nation address as tabled last week. We particularly welcome the elevation of water and sanitation sector as a key pillar of service delivery and economic development for the ANC-led GNU. Commitments to the Freedom Charter and the Constitution have driven the ANC government's efforts to ensure universal access to safe, clean and drinking water and proper sanitation services. Over the couple of years, we have seen the ANC continued commitment manifesting itself in infrastructure. In his maiden State of the Nation address in 2018, President Ramaphosa announced the establishment of the Infrastructure Fund, which was subsequently established in August of 2020 to drive the infrastructure development across the country. As you have mentioned, the President, 23 billion has been secured to date for 7 large water infrastructure projects through the Infrastructure Fund. The financial support is critical for ensuring long-term sustainability of this project. Madam Chair, Bishop Ramila of St. Paul African Anglican Church in Muletsani, Soweto, and a CEO of DDK Merchandising in Rosebank, shared with me his views on the Sona, and amongst many things he says, I quote, President Ramaphosa delivered a more detailed than usual State of the Nation address, tackling some of the most pressing challenges. His speech focused on the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment and equality, emphasizing that low economic growth remains a significant barrier to the meaningful change, close quote. The government, under the leadership of the ANC, has made significant strides in accessing and resolving water challenges in our country. Amongst the key recent developments is the Giyani Water Project in Limpopo, where the Department of Water and Sanitation has managed to complete the first phase of the project, which is comprised the recirculation of water to 24 villages in the Mopani District Municipality, improving the lives of thousands of the citizens. In Hammanskraal, Gauteng, Woiwo is here to agree, the Department of Water and Sanitation, working with the Makhalis Water and Tshwane Metro Municipality, have restored the water supply, and today, residents of Hammanskraal have safe drinking water in their taps. This is after the successful completion of phase 1 of the Hammanskraal Water Project. We agree with President Ramaphosa that the water sector needs to be reformed to ensure reliable, sustainable water provision in the country. In this regard, the ANC-led government has prioritized fixing the functionality of water service authorities to deliver on their mandate and provide proper funding for water infrastructure maintenance. The African National Congress supports the Ministry of Water and Sanitation's plan to encourage water boards to take a more active role. This means they will have to provide technical support to local government and manage water projects, ensuring that water service authorities can deliver water and sanitation service effectively. Furthermore, the African National Congress welcomes the President Ramaphosa's announcement committing his government to work with municipalities to establish a professionally managed, well-financed, modern and fit-for-purpose local government system that is capable of delivering its mandate, among others, the provision of safe, clean drinking water and proper sanitation services. Chairperson, Ms. Lindiwe Kanyai, founder of On Shelf and Beyond, a black-owned female company, says on the State of the Nation, and I quote, "I was truly encouraged by President Ramaphosa's speech and his reaffirmation of government commitment to economic transformation. We are ready to collaborate with government to help shape and execute solutions that will transform their lives and uplift our communities." Close quote. The water and sanitation sector is ready to play its part in addressing the lack of technical skills within most of the water service authorities. For instance, Rainwater is currently expanding the scope of the Rainwater Academy, which was established in 2012, to now develop technical skills much needed to address South African water challenges. Chairperson, the ANC-led GNU is committed to ensuring much needed attention and increased investment in sanitation, not only in ending sewer spillages, but most importantly, in protecting the dignity of vulnerable in our society. Already, the Department of Water and Sanitation has issued for public comment proposed amendments to the National Water Act and the National Water Services Act, where it said that the bucket system should be outlawed and that there should be no municipality to ever provide the bucket system as a temporary measure, even in informal settlements. Provisions are already existing to increase the investment in sanitation through the Green Fund by the Department of Environmental Affairs, as administered by the Development Bank of Southern Africa. Chairperson, as I conclude, please allow me to express my gratitude to the ANC-led government commitment to resolving the issue of inadequate water financing, which has currently hindered the provision of water and sanitation services to communities. President Ramaphosa has asserted during the State of the Nation that his government is committed to developing innovative ways of funding infrastructure. Among the innovative ways, the ANC has proposed ring-fencing of traditional funding, the use of traditional grants, blended finance, private sector partnership, and encouraging departments and local municipalities to access blue and green bonds. If this is a coincidence, Chairperson, then it's a very bad coincidence, because this chap is known to have played a key role in collapsing of Vendor Building Society, otherwise known as VBS. And in August of 2024, he then moved to KwaZulu-Natal, and suddenly Italy is experiencing problems. I don't know if this is a coincidence. As the African National Congress, we are convinced that all above measures will enhance the national government support for water authorities, and by implementing innovative financing mechanism to address water challenges, we can ensure access to an efficient provision for water and sanitation. Therefore, we call on all municipalities, water boards and communities to work together in advancing security in the country. As President Ramaphosa has said, we as South Africa need to work together to confront our country's challenges and build a nation that works for all its people. I thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. The whips of all parties have consulted among each other and agreed that we will now take a break, comfort break for 30 minutes. The reason for that is that we don't have enough ablution facilities, and that is why we're giving 30 minutes to all of you. The bells will be rung at 4:30 to allow all of us to come back. The House is adjourned. Sorry, the business of the day is suspended for a while, not adjourned. So you are not going home.